Okay, I think we are live. Welcome, everyone. I think we're probably going to start in around 2 minutes, just while we get some more people hopping on the webinar. So in the meantime, feel free to put in the chat, where are you calling in from? How's the weather? I'm in New York City. It's kind of been really rainy up until yesterday. Yesterday, finally, sun came out, and it was a really beautiful day. We have Berlin, Boston. Amazing. I wonder if it's similar.
Weirdly humid in Berlin.
I love
Same in Hamburg.
Yeah. Very humid and sunny. Yes. The East Coast summers. I know all about it. Breaking temp records. Oh my gosh. Oh, I love it. Let's see. Looks like more are joining and typing. Love it. How about Michelle? How's Hamburg?
Same, I think quite similar to Berlin. Quite humid, super warm. Yeah, actually I'm waiting somewhat for the thunder and lightning for everything to cool off again. Even though I love summer, but
Yeah. Yeah, I feel the same. Houston, Texas, a cool 96 degrees today. Sounds really for all of our Celsius friends. It's pretty hot. Ontario, Canada, hi from Berlin. Amazing. So it seems like we are well represented. I don't want to take too much time here because we have a lot of cool content to cover today. So keep putting in the chat where you're from, and chime in at any time. But welcome, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us today. My name is Sami. I'm a people and talent partner here at Leapsome. I've been at Leapsome for about 3 years, 10 years total in HR. And I'm joined by a very, very special guest who happens to be my dear friend, closest confidant here at Leapsome, the very talented Michelle Severin. Clap.
Sami, thank you so much for this intro. I love working with you too, especially when we get to do cool things like this webinar at times. I'm Michelle. I'm the people and talent team lead here at Leapsome. Been here over 4 years now, and I've not only studied HR, but I also never really tried anything else professionally. Always been in very tech and data focused roles. So now it's even more exciting for me to integrate this more and more into our daily.
Agree. And I feel so lucky to have overlapped with you the past 3 years. We've done a lot of cool stuff, but excited to talk to you about how we run our review cycles all on our very own platform and the journey of how we got here. So before we dive in, a quick housekeeping for everyone joining. Use the chat for reactions and comments throughout. We will be keeping an eye on that. You can drop questions in the Q&A box. We'll get to those at the end of the webinar. Also, for questions or comments in the chat, we have a very special guest in the background, Grace Osborne. She's a product consultant here at Leapsome. She's on the call if you have any specific questions that are deeper in the product, and we can kind of have her as well. And as a reminder, this recording will go out to everyone who registered. So if you have to drop off early for any reason, the rest of the recording will go out to you. So moving on to why we are here today. So most review content tells you how you should do it. Today, Michelle and I are showing how we actually run our cycles in the real platform, and including what was messy before and kind of how we got to where we are today. But a review isn't just about collecting feedback. Any single tool can do that and let it sit there. The real point of this is what happens after. How you spot your high performers, understanding the full context behind them during calibrations. So finding that details like tenure, last promotion, last merit increase, so you can actually retain these people. Spotting these skill gaps and performance trends across the org so you can build the initiatives that raise your talent density. And that's the context you can't get from feedback sitting in various tools. It shows up when you connect the data really across the systems. And that's the gap we're trying to solve at Leapsome. It's bigger than just our tools don't talk to each other. So starting off with a little poll to get everyone's brains moving, where does performance management actually live for you today? Is it multiple tools stitched together manually, a spreadsheet someone maintains for the cycle, mostly one system, but comp and performance are separate, genuinely one place? Let's see where the vote goes to. I submitted my vote, genuinely one place.
You did? I was wondering, should we?
Yeah, submit it.
It will skew the results, though. I'm doing it too.
All right, let's keep an eye on that. It looks like mostly one system is kind of coming in at the top. Got it. We also have some multiple tools. So we're kind of a good mix across the board. So just to let everyone know where we were before, we were in spreadsheets and using a different HRIS platform completely. I won't name their name, but that's kind of where we were maybe a little over a year ago. So collecting data, we had at least 3 different systems and tools from several different brains to consolidate it all in one spreadsheet. We always had to rework the formatting and really split it into digestible pieces for the managers and calibration groups.
Yeah.
Michelle,
And what? Yeah, we were also like working across time zones, and you finished off. I worked more on it, and so on, back and forth. And I think what bothered me the most there was that we knew the data is there somewhere because we care, but by the time we were like collecting it all and consolidating it, it was either too late or maybe even outdated, or through manual pasting there were errors in there, or it didn't have the same format as last time. So there was disappointment, and I think what this led to was that we lost people's trust, and I think that's the worst thing that can happen to a people person, especially after you put so much work, time, and sweat into this, that you felt like you would have deserved a bit of joy coming out of this.
Yeah,
so for sure.
And keyword on time. I mean, we cover multiple time zones on our people team, so we'd really get into a rhythm. So whenever you would finish something in the Germany time zone, I'd pick it up in NYC, and no one should be spending that much time across 2 time zones. So this is a perfect moment to show you some cool stuff that we can now do in Leapsome to make our lives easier. So I'm going to hand it to Michelle to show you what our Vibe dashboards are all about and how we've saved so much time in this prep work for our review cycles.
Yes, thank you, Sami. Very happy to show you around. Before I do so, I just want to briefly explain what this Vibe dashboard really is. So it's basically a very fun and easy way to build a dashboard, which you would have not thought that this can go together, but it actually does. So you can kind of come up with a dashboard of any data that is there in the system, be it implicit or explicit. So those dashboards can really range from very classic analytics on surveys, absences, people metrics, and so on, to really playful insights like, for example, celebrations, goal achievements, or even like meeting cost. So when it comes to doing the same, so Vibe dashboarding for the pre-review cycle, I'm going to share my screen and show you how this looks like. So I am here in the analytics dashboard section, and here's the pre-review preparation dashboard. This is now obviously not real Leapsome data, but just pulled together for the purpose of this webinar. I will explain to you what this is about, but what is more exciting to show is how I got there. So we basically prompt this builder. We can talk to it or like text with it, chat with it, and tell it, hey, we have the review cycle. We're just before the review cycle. We need certain data, like, for example, tenure, last promotion date, last compensation change, everyone's levels, and so on. Like data you want to look at that's interesting to look into before a review cycle. And you can just like get questions asked by the builder. For example, maybe things aren't clear, so they just like check back. Then the builder would also come up with with suggestions by itself. So given the context, maybe you also want to look into this and that data. It will also tell you where it got the data from, so you can also intervene if you don't feel like it's relevant or it's the wrong source. So maybe one attribute sounds different to what it actually is, so it would pull the wrong data. And you can really like chat back and forth. You can even add more. Maybe now you know, I want to add more fields as well. And you can even change the format if what it like provides you with you don't like, you want it visualized differently or just in a different format, you can also do that. So when you generate what you have like come up with, it then takes like 2 to 4 minutes, more or less, which is why I also don't do this live. We did this before. And then this view is generated. So what we have up here is basically all suggested by the builder itself. I didn't ask for it specifically, but it just wanted to provide like general review score trends. It also wanted to provide general participation, which I think is interesting to look at over time, especially. Then it provided a manager and reporting line lens. So what this would tell us is basically either Laurie's and Tracy's teams are best performing and Sadie's and Jessica's teams are performing worst, so to say. Or maybe it tells us that Sadie and Jessica may need more support for the review cycle because there are tougher conversations to happen. Or it can also tell us that maybe Laurie and Tracy are just scoring people more favorable than Sadie and Jessica do. So I think you kind of get the point of what those data fields bring as insights to you. Down here, this is the explicit ask that I had. I wanted a table with everyone's team, location, level, also the manager. What I asked the builder as well is to kind of give me a manager history, but it did tell me in the chat that there are no historical manager changes. So it also tells me if there are limitations to the data. It's not a real life scenario. We would have historical manager changes. And that's what's interesting to look into compared to, for example, previous cycle scores. So maybe there's a correlation here, but we also have like current comp, latest promotion, latest comp change, and so on. So if we look at Monica as an example, we can see that, hey, she's a quite senior AE. She has 5 years of tenure, and she is performing quite close to low performance, but just had a recent promotion. Again, this is not real data. So 5 months ago, a promotion, and 1 year ago, a comp change is not realistic, but let's pretend. And I think the point I want to bring across here is that this preparation really gives you like a great sense check of where trickier conversations have to happen, or where managers may need more support, or where employee changes could be a result of the review, or where there are certain patterns also to flag and to address in, for example, later calibrations. And all the way down here, we did something a bit more playful. We call this organizational connectedness. So we did want to see and ask the builder to provide us with an overview of who is providing feedback to whom, to kind of get like a general peer feedback participation, but also to see where there are cross-functional connections that we may not even be aware of. So maybe there's also somewhat hidden impact that's not very visible to the overall org that we can then identify with this org connector as well. So yeah.
This changes the game for our team, like fundamentally just being able, I love that these data fields, like they tell you exactly what we've asked for here at Leapsome every single cycle. And this is what we used to have to export out of our previous HRIS, create spreadsheets, so much manual work. And there's also a lot of risk in that, in being like having to copy and paste, move things around. So now getting the overview that we need within a few minutes, drastically cut down our time in prepping for the cycle.
Yeah, and the cool thing, it's not just for us, because we want managers and especially like department heads to get into those review cycles just as well prepared. So what we can also do is we can edit like the visibility groups and then share the same review without removing data, without adding filters and so on, but just for the like department head, for example, and their team that they are supposed to see the data for with one click. And then they have the same way to look into this. And I have so many department heads that regularly ask for this kind of overview beforehand, so they kind of know what to get ready for. So that's a big add-on as well.
Yeah, and we used to do it by each department, like sales, marketing, engineering, and so that's like all a manual step each time. So yeah, so cool. We can share it instantly. Thank you for that Vibe dashboard overview. We've been having so much fun as a team playing around in there. But next step in the review process is when people have to actually write their reviews. So that was kind of a short glimpse into how much time we can save prepping for the cycle. But that's something else that keeps us running the process efficient is the AI review assistant. So when people go in, and actually write the reviews for their manager, for themselves. So I'd love very shortly in the chat, on average, how much time do you think you or your managers are spending writing one single review? You can just throw out minutes, hours, days into the chat. I think I wrote my most recent review. I think it took me about 25 minutes.
Yeah, you wouldn't have said the same like last year.
Yeah, Cassandra said hours.
So,
exactly. Yeah. More typing. I know it's like crazy times that we're in. 30 minutes, 45 minutes. Yeah, no, we're all over the place. Yana said it's Yana's from Leapsome, so
I used to take like especially for the trickier ones, like 1.5 sometimes, because it just took so much effort of me to think of the right words and to get it all
you
together.
Want to be like reflective and make the feedback impactful. Amazing. So Michelle, can you pull up our reviews and show us how it's done?
Yes. Let me go right into reviews. I'm still sharing, right? I am.
Yeah.
So here we have the reviews. You can see that I have a few reviews to do. One is writing an assessment for my manager, Leslie. So you can see here, I have to provide feedback on her performance and also answer some open-ended questions. And the first thing you do going into a cycle is asking yourself what has actually happened. Because, especially here, time flies. Same my whole career, so I don't know if you feel different or not, but time flies. You sometimes don't even know what really has happened. What is evidence you can bring? What are examples you can bring? And can you really put this into constructive feedback without examples? No. So first of all, on the right here, we have some very helpful context that reminds you of what has happened in different modules that are connected. So for example, I know here are no private notes, but if you had private notes from, for example, meetings, that's where you would find them. You have competencies, like a reminder on what is Leslie actually supposed to do on her level. So you would see that like the descriptions all here. But you also have goals and kind of see like what was she working on and how far along did she get with them, which is a very good reminder. And you also have instant feedback. So maybe you or someone else praised her, gave her good feedback, and you're like, oh, right, that's what she did. So you already have a bit of context you can pick up from again. But what's even cooler and what's sometimes even more time consuming after collecting what you want to mention in those assessments is really coming up with the right words. So how do you put that? How do you bring that in full sentences? How do you make it actionable, evidence-based, and all that? And this is actually a huge difference here, that you can chat with the review assistant here and just honestly brain dump, unstructured, unconstructive, just tell it even what I tried this time and really loved was transcribing it. So I would just tell it what I want to include in the review, and it will help me structure it, put it in nice words, constructive feedback, and then put it into and that's what you see here, it put it in here into the respective buckets. So for example, for impact, that's what it kind of generated. And I will actually show you how this works. It really transcribes all the words. So I will stop for a second and then say something. She brings really nice treats to the office. And I will do that. Wait, what did it say? Did it listen the whole time? I think so. She brings nice treats to the office. Let me do this again. So now, properly, you will also see that this is not like here. And this is what I love. That's a warm detail. And it can speak a lot for her, but maybe this is not enough evidence. So maybe you need a bit more. So maybe you dig a bit deeper, and then it would ask you and challenge you to really come up with like proper feedback. And especially that's more actionable and more also related to the level expectations that there are. If you do not want to do it this way, there's also a way to just type it in here, like write it all down. Maybe that's your way of working. I'll do it again. She's great. And then you have an assistant here as well that would either just check for grammar and spelling or enhance it with constructive feedback and having kind of the same mechanism in the background. So yeah, that's on the review.
I love how it challenges you, because I think that's a really common issue across several different orgs of feedback being a little too vague and not super specific. So I love those challenges. Michelle, how, in your experience, how much of that first draft usually survives untouched? Like how much editing do you kind of do after that first draft?
It depends a bit. So what I think is very important to note is that human touch always matters. So it will always matter. You will always be in control. So you either accept it or reject it entirely. So that's always in your control. You can also regenerate if you just pull up the chat again and say like, hey, something didn't really come across as planned, as intended. Or also what I have is like many times it's not in the system either. Like you have like thoughts in your brain like as well. And there might be context that the system also doesn't have. So that's super important that you keep that kind of detail. But there's also so much more time now to like or headspace to bring this in. So yeah, it's a bit like 50-50. Sometimes I add more, sometimes I reword it, but it is like helping a ton.
Yeah, no, I love this feature. I mean, we're, like I said before, we're in review season right now. I use this for every review I wrote. So not only saving so much time, but giving that really relevant responses, but also keeping that human aspect. I mean, you don't want to just accept the like AI specific wording. You want to make it sound like yourself, but nice. So now that reviews are submitted, sometimes that's not even the biggest challenge. I think the next step managers have to face is the actual conversation, especially if tougher feedback needs to be given.
Yeah, I guess I'm coming right in, right?
Yeah.
Going back to the reviews again. So Oscar here now is my direct report. And I am basically right before the conversation with him. And as Sami mentioned, especially for tougher conversations, this can be really tricky. Again, you need a lot of time to prepare for it. You might also feel very uncomfortable because there's trickier feedback to share. Maybe also between the write-up and the actual conversation, a lot of time has passed, so you don't even really remember anymore what this was about. Or all the details. So you first have this AI summary here again of what the feedback has been, where the gaps were, and what kind of to focus on. But you also have suggested action items. But that's not even like the most exciting to me. The most exciting to me is the conversation guide we have here. I will quickly toggle it all to kind of walk you through. And I would say what this brings is just, it gives structure to you. You don't have to think about this anymore. B, it takes off a lot of work of HR as well, kind of facilitating and trying to prep managers here. And it also just gives you, like, it just empowers you to walk through this. You're like, it's all there. There are no surprises. I just need to bring this across properly. And here are just so many examples or guides on how to do this. You have the meeting preparation. I won't go into all of that in all detail, but what I want to highlight here is that one thing I really like is that it also flags if the ratings are similar, if self-review and manager review is somewhat aligned or not, and how to deal with it if not. For strength, it's not just giving a summary of what the strengths are and what to focus on, but also on how to deal with if they downplay it, or in terms of the development areas, what might be even harder to deal with is if they disagree or if they go quiet entirely. So there are really nice kind of guides on how to prompt the conversation to go on and to go like constructively. And here on the action items, there are also like goals resulting from the review itself that entails as well, like what success would look like and what you as a manager should support them with as well. And what I also find very helpful is, especially after calibrations, and maybe like rationals have changed, maybe scores have even changed, you can go in and regenerate this conversation guide if you have made any edits to this.
Yeah, no, this is so helpful. And, you know, when we were prepping for this call, like a real life example of how much time these conversation guides have saved us is we literally had in our Q3 roadmap for our review cycle was to post and create a manager conversation guide for our managers, like in Notion, to like, you know, how to address those difficult conversations, kind of some examples of good questions to ask and things like that. This literally removed that that action item on our roadmap overall. So so nice to have it all in the platform and just easy for each manager to guide and custom tailored to each employee. I mean, the guide that we were going to post is just super general, and this is taking the feedback and really taking in that self-assessment. So yet another example of how quickly things are evolving, which is really cool to see. So before moving on to our next topic, we're going to send another poll because we're going to talk about calibration. That's kind of to wrap up the review cycle. So how painful is calibration for you right now? It's fine. We have a good process. It's manageable, but it takes too long. It's messy and stressful, or it's a nightmare. Not too many nightmares, but let's see where we're at. Oh, most people, 57%, it's manageable, but it takes too long. Yeah, it's a lot of time. Too messy and stressful. Okay, so generally we're feeling all right, but really want to see those time savings, right? So, I mean, for us, it's kind of painful to be completely honest. We would export the review cycle data, put it into spreadsheets, and schedule several meetings with our founders, department heads. So this is why we're excited to share now how we run calibration completely inside Leapsome. So Michelle, your cue. Back to you.
All right. Let me go back to analytics here and to reviews. I always directly jump to the box view. I don't know. I just find it so much more appealing somehow. So I'm in the analytics section in the analytics module. And we're now in the calibrations. I will select the calibration round or the review cycle I want to look at and the respective calibration group. So that obviously depends on your own view rights and the calibration group you're part of. For the purpose of this webinar here, it's simplified. And then you will see that there is a pre-read available. And this pre-read actually gives a full list of all individuals where there are certain changes suggested. So down here, I mean, there's a drop down as well, and you can see a bit more what this is about. But that's really mostly what this calibration group is about, right? It's not about changing someone's ratings necessarily, but it's about getting the same understanding and getting a fair same bar of expectations for everyone, and not having disadvantages like across the org based on biases or based on incorrect scoring and so on. So we have this list of a pre-read here, and there are certain calibration signals that there are available. I will go into more detail when I actually talk about the box view, but those are like the most common calibration signals that exist, or like topics to calibrate on. And the way we would go about it in a calibration session is we would actually like pull up the top performers first, kind of pull them up in pairs and have the managers talk to them. And we would open the pre-read for that. And by the way, before we go into the calibration round, something I forgot that's really, really significant though, is that we share this calibration pre-read with the managers before. So they can just come in as well prepared as we do, and already prepare for why there might be a manager leniency or a rating evidence mismatch. So for example, for Leslie, other people's input doesn't really resonate with the final scoring that the manager provided, or the manager is generally scoring higher or lower compared to other managers. So this is really insightful here, and what you actually calibrate on. And then you have interesting employee info next to it, where maybe you want to know what is actually the current comp, what's the tenure, when was the last promotion or merit. You also have all manager reviews, so maybe there are past review scores that are also interesting to look into, and a calibration history. So maybe also this cycle, maybe you make any changes to the rationals, and that's where you would add the note as to why you made the changes. So you can always see, like, for example, why you changed the rating. The way you can change a rating is by either accepting it. You can also just keep it by dismissing it, because you discussed in the calibration round it's actually correct as it is, but thanks for the flag. Or you can go in here and move it around. So that's how we would run the calibration. And after we address the top performers, we would then kind of address our bubble population, which usually is very much centered around core. And then we would pick those, obviously not everyone has flags in reality. We would pick those where it was harder to find evidence, or where managers struggle to rate them, and discuss those, and then kind of discuss the outliers after, and do a quick sense check of how this behaves for certain levels or location whatsoever, to kind of get really to the point there.
Yeah, I thank you for this deep dive. I'm personally excited about the pre-reads and really seeing them in practice. I mean, these went live really only a couple months ago, so this will be our first review cycle using them. And one step we actually removed because of the pre-reads was a department pre-calibration. So before, us as people partners would schedule a meeting even before the actual calibration to flag these exact sort of trends. So now it can really be done async. You can share it with the groups. And of course, we can check in as people partners and make sure everything's making sense. But yeah, it removed that step completely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and what I think is really helpful with this is sometimes you already had like a sense or a sentiment of what was going on. So maybe you had a certain idea about how a certain manager is usually rating their team, or you had some thoughts about specific team members, especially as a people partner, you get a sense of that, or you should have. Yeah. So this pre-read really helps you also validate that, or even get this sentiment removed, because it's just not true.
Yeah.
So
yeah, exactly. But before we kind of wrap up on calibration, we did have an interesting comment in the chat from Laura. She said, in my previous company, the problem wasn't the tool, but more than managers just didn't want to move away from their initial ratings or disagree with other people's ratings too often. 100%. I think this is a super common issue. I think for one thing that I would love to follow up with you after the webinar, and we're happy to also share this, is Jessie Zwan, our VP of People and Operations. She has an article that she posted on the golden rules of calibration, and that might give you a really good way to set up your calibrations for success, to kind of change this mindset a little bit. So for the sake of what we're going over for today, I won't go too details in like how we run the calibration meeting itself, but happy to send over that resource from Jessie, because I think it just sets ground rules for everyone. Yana, we can follow up with that. But thank you for the comments, and love to see the chat so active. So kind of wrapping this all up, closing out, a few reflections from Michelle and I. So Michelle, what would you tell a team still running this process across 5 different tools?
Good question. So what I would tell them is that there is a better way, and it doesn't have to be scary or a huge undertaking to get there. So we also did the transitioning from our old HRS to Leapsome platform, and I was very excited because I just love doing these kind of things, but I was also very scared. I'm being honest. I was afraid of this eating months. I was afraid of losing or messing our data up halfway, but it's actually not a rip and replace. So the data we already had didn't disappear, and it just stopped living in different places. So once it's connected, all the manual reconciliation goes away, and you really get the time back for things that matter, at least almost to all of us, I would say. And that is really like the calibration conversations themselves, coaching managers on better feedback, catching the person who is about to leave before it's too late. So if you're running this across 5 tools today, you don't even have to do all this at once. So you can start with connecting 2 out of 5, for example, and already start de-risking.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. Sami, and what's the one biggest joy or spark or benefit running reviews the way we do that you have?
Yeah, I love that question. Honestly, it's trust. I think when all the data lives in one place, I can actually tell my stakeholders a coherent story with it, instead of asking them to trust a spreadsheet that I stitched together a few nights before. They can see the same tenure, comp, feedback history I'm looking at. So the conversation moves from, do I believe this data, to what do we actually want to do about it? And the time we get back matters just as much. So instead of spending a cycle chasing down numbers and reformatting them for calibration, I can get to spend that time doing the actual people partner work that brings me joys and sparks. So sitting with managers, coaching them on feedback, checking in with them mid-cycle, making sure they feel supported through the process, not just informed at the end of it. So that's the part of the job I actually love, and it's the part that used to get squeezed out a little bit. And finally, to you, what feedback / benefits do Leapsome employees and managers actually share about the review process?
So the honest answer is that our process has never stood still, and we've changed it almost every cycle. And not everyone is super stoked about constant change. I want to be that transparent and honest. But the feedback we hear consistently, cycle over cycle, is really the same. 2 things. So it's one, cut the admin. People want to spend less time on formatting, chasing forms, re-entering information, and really have more time actually thinking about the person in front of them. And the second one is they want us to find a consistent way of measuring and communicating what great looks like. So managers want a clear sense of what a strong performance review reads, versus just filling in a template. So the direction we keep getting pushed into is like quality over quantity, and just better written reviews instead of like checking the boxes.
Yeah, I completely agree. Yeah, I mean, quality over quantity is always kind of what we strive for. for everyone here, that really ends our main content, but happy to open up the Q&A box. I can see Grace has been lively in the chat getting back to everyone. So shout out to Grace for really jumping in. And I don't see open questions at the moment, so feel free to put them in the chat or the Q&A box. Anything that is top of mind.
Grace was really at it.
Thank you, Grace. That's amazing. We will definitely stay on. And we're happy a few more minutes if any questions do come in. And oh, here we go. We have a question. How customizable is your performance review in 9box? Let's see. Michelle, do you want to take that one?
So how customizable the view is?
The performance review in 9box. So like the questions that we put in there, and then
it's completely customizable. You might not even come up with a 9box anymore. The way you got to the 9box here is by you stopped sharing, right, Sami? I think.
Yeah.
I stopped. So the way we got there here is by asking questions for like performance and potential, and always have 3 answers there. So that's how you get 9 grid. But if your calibration questions are different, so for example, now we also tried only looking at performance and have like 4 options there, then it's not a 9 grid. And it's totally customizable. So it's the way you define the performer, that like the performance scale and the potential scale.
Yeah, exactly. Nice. Feel free to keep adding some more, but I just want to make a few notes for anyone who has to drop off. So just as a reminder, this recording is going out to everyone who registered. And just to as a reminder, reporting season doesn't have to be a scramble. We can show you a setup that's easier, clearer, and gives your work more purpose. We use it ourselves every day. We're really feeding constant feedback to our team, how to keep the platform practical and effective. So feel free to chat with our team and see if we could do the same for yours. The link should be in the chat from Yana if you want to connect with our team. And that is really it for us today. It looks like there are no other questions. Thank you so much for taking time out of your Wednesdays to spend time with us. Michelle, always a pleasure to get to chat with you. And
likewise.
thank you so much, everyone. Thanks for